Hello, welcome back to my channel and another video where I tell you all about my personal goals. My focus here on my channel is to help you with your personal goals, but I believe that watching somebody, me, who's a real person with a real life, set and achieve most of their goals that they set is a really great way for you to learn how to break down goals, how to schedule them into your life, and how to accept that the progress is not always going to be perfect. That said, before we jump into this video where I will talk all about my January goals and how they went and then talk about all of my February action steps, January went really well for me. I'm filming this video on the 24th, so there's still about a week left in the month, but you will see on my January goal sheet that I have done a good job in January. And I think that that's due to a number of reasons. One being that I got really focused. I prioritized steps and picked just a small number of steps, which I think has allowed me to really follow through on those steps. I also think there is some level of that January motivation, excitement that comes with a new year. And then there is also something about my newfound motivation and my why now that I am a mom. And I talked more about that, I believe it was my 2023 goals wrap up video. It was either that one or the 2024 goals video where I talked a lot about how being a mom and having a daughter has now just inspired me to do my best as much as I possibly can. Does that mean that I am perfect every single day? Not even close, but it is helpful on days that I need that extra oomph. She is that extra oomph for me. So I wanted to start by talking about that so that if your January does not look like mine, that does not mean that the rest of your year is going to be a failure. It's not. There are still so many days left this year. There is still so much time to make progress on your goals. So regardless of what your January looked like, there's still a lot of time left, and I don't want you comparing your January progress to mine. With that, let's start talking about the specifics. So the one-time action steps, the first one was to make a list of doctor's appointments that I wanted to schedule over the course of the quarter. I guess before I get into the steps, let me remind you that if you have not watched my overarching 2024 goals video, my Q1 goals video, so my focus is for Q1, and then the January action steps video where I go through these in detail and talk a little bit more about what they are. This video is recapping them, and it will make a lot more sense if you've seen those videos first. Back to the action steps. So my first one was to just make a list of all the doctor's appointments that I want to make by the end of the quarter. I cheated a little bit and did this the last week of December between Christmas and New Year's. And I just did it on a note on my phone. I listed out all the doctor's appointments and kind of prioritized them in the order I want to go in and check that one off. That is an example of these one-time action steps that could be just very simple and straightforward. You'll see mine are kind of a balance. It's either like a really short one-time thing or something bigger that needed to be broken down in other places. The next one was to make one of those appointments. That's all I wanted to do in January, was to make one of those appointments, and I didn't even get specific on which one. I was pretty sure I knew which one I wanted to start with, but I did not get specific, and I did that. I made an appointment with a primary care physician. The next one-time step was to book the flights for all of our first half trips, and that is an example of an action step that had more steps. It wasn't just one time I sat down and booked these flights, and there were other conversations that had to happen, right? Conversations with my husband, a trip that we're going on with family, what dates are we coming and going, etc. And then researching the flights, picking the airlines, booking the flights, etc. It also involved signing my little girl up for her first rewards miles for a couple of different airlines, so that was really exciting. So that one did require more steps that I broke down in a different place, but I got all of those done and the first half is all ready to go. I'm so excited. The next one-time action step was an example of me making it really small, and then I actually went a little bit above and beyond. So in January, I wanted to keep it simple and just ask myself to pick the swim company for swim lessons for my daughter. Not only did I pick the swim company, but then we actually went to our first lesson earlier this week. It was so cute. She is adorable. I'm still not 100% sure if that's the company we're gonna stick with. There was one that I liked more, but they didn't start until 6 months, and this one started at 4 months. So I decided that I wanted to get started. So we tried this one, and we're gonna do this one until she turns 6 months, and then we might try the other one and then pick. But regardless, I did the action step. I'm going into way more detail than you probably need to know or care to know. But overall, I actually already achieved that quarterly goal. And I I'm gonna talk about that a little bit more before we move into February. Let's continue with January for now. The last one-time step was to make a list of the monthly items that I want to make sure that we're prioritizing in our household. These are things like washing the rugs in the bathroom, like those kinds of tasks that you forget about until you're like, oh, that's kind of gross. I probably need to do that. And this was one that I also started that week between Christmas and New Year's, but I've been adding to it as the month goes on. And I've been doing some of them, not all of them, but some of them. And I will talk more when we get to February about what my next step is with this particular quarterly goal of these recurring monthly items. Moving into the weekly steps, these have also gone very well this month, and I have done them every single week, which is not normal for me with weekly action steps. If you've been around, I have struggled with weekly action steps for years. I don't know, for whatever reason, they don't always click for me, and I really struggle to do them. Daily I've got, one time I've got, but weekly don't always work out for me. But one of these was a meal planning step, which is really only a weekly step, right? It doesn't have to happen more than once a week. I mean, it can, but I'm not gonna be the kind of person that plans out my meals every day. And I am also not gonna be the kind of person that plans out for an entire month. So I wanna get back into meal planning. In January, I set a goal to do just one dinner. And not only did I do that, but I did 2 dinners for the 3 weeks that I've planned so far. I really debated here when to check this off, if I was planning for that week or if I was planning during that week. I don't even remember what I ended up deciding because I've done it every week, so it almost doesn't matter. So that feels really good, even though I set a minimum for myself that was really low. But I think knowing that I only had to plan one encouraged me to do that action step. The other one was to spend 15 minutes organizing in my kitchen. And I talked in my January goals video that I wasn't sure if this was gonna work, if I was going to be the kind of person that could organize just a little bit at a time. And I have read the book, Decluttering at the Speed of Life, and highly recommend it. But I wasn't sure if it was gonna work in this situation where I really needed to because it wasn't decluttering, it was like reorganizing my kitchen. And so I wasn't sure if it was going to work to do it 15 minutes at a time, or if I was really going to want to just block off an entire weekend day and go to town. And I knew I didn't have that weekend day in January. I could schedule one in February if I wanted it. Spoiler alert, I don't need it. Because doing it a little bit at a time did work. And I did it way more than just 15 minutes once a week, because once I started, I wanted to keep going. And that momentum really kicked in, and I wanted to finish it. Moving into the daily steps, and again, I'm also very impressed with myself with how these went. So the first one was daily gratitude. This one doesn't count in terms of the check marks, like I did it all the days, because I didn't do it every single day, but I always played catch up. I talked about this more in that January goals video, that for this particular daily step, this was more about tracking, did I do that particular date? And so that meant sometimes I was going back and playing catch up because I wanted to have a gratitude entry for every single day. That is why there's a check mark on every single day. The Daily Stoic. First off, y'all, I forgot how much I love, 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 love this book. If you are looking for a daily read, it is not too late. Get the Daily Stoic. I highly recommend it. I read it 2 years in a row in 2020 and 2021. And then I took a break from it because I was like, I'm sure there are other great daily reads, and let me read those instead. And I tried both in 22 and 23 to find one that I liked as much and could not find one. So I went back to the Daily Stoic. I bought a fresh copy and I'm rereading that, and I'm absolutely loving it. I talked in a Vlogmas video where I talked about all of my reading goals for the year, that I wasn't sure if I was gonna count this goal as read on my good reads for the year. And what I've decided to do is set an overall annual goal for this book. And that is, if I read 80% of the days, I know I'm not gonna read 100%. I already missed days in January, and I know I will miss days. I'm gonna go on trips where I'm not gonna take the book with me. Now, I could get the Kindle version so that I could do it while I'm traveling. We'll see, because I may have to, I may need to do the math. And if I don't do it on any of our trips, that might automatically put me, I don't know, we're not gonna be traveling 20% of the year. So maybe that math doesn't check. But I'm gonna miss other days too, because you miss days, life. But if I read 80% of the days this year, then I get to count it in my Goodreads. That's not a rule, that's just a thing I made for myself. There is no hard or fast rule about that. That is what I'm doing. So in January, I missed 3 days. So I did it 88% so far as of the 24th. So I'm already pulling myself up there a little bit in January, which is good, because the two of the 3 days I've missed so far this year, or this month and year, I guess, were when we were traveling and I didn't take it with me. So I'm feeling good about that and excited about my overarching annual goal for this book. I am not going to carry it over into February, let me tell you that now, but I am still going to track it. I have actually been tracking my habits on my phone. One of you sent me an Instagram DM and I tried to find it so I could give you credit and I could not. So if that was you, thank you. Recommended this app literally called Habit, and I'm still not ready to like fully recommend it because I'm still trying to figure out how it works for me and if I do, like how to explain who it is good for. But it's working because I am not in my office every day. And that is where I hang this up. I hang this on like above my desk. And when I was in my office every day, it was easy for me to just update it every day. And here's the other big part of that. I wouldn't forget. I used to not forget. Pre-pregnancy, Laken could remember if she read the entry 3 days ago. Now I cannot remember. If I don't mark it that day, like I forget. Now, obviously one of the solutions to this is I could hang this somewhere that I do see it every day, whether that's my bathroom or the fridge or like my nightstand, like somewhere I am every day. But for now, I'm trying this where I have this app on my phone and I will mark it as soon as I do it. So as soon as I do my daily stoic, I will mark it. As soon as I did I actually didn't do it for the daily gratitude, but I did it for daily stoic and I did it for finances. So I am not gonna carry daily stoic on my goal sheet in February, but I am gonna continue to track it on my phone. That way I can keep up with, am I hitting this 80% goal? And then the last daily action step was to track my finances. And this one also has gone really well. I've only missed the 2 days that we were traveling. I've done it 92% of the days. This is one of those goals that when I am on it, I'm on it. And then it's almost all or nothing for me, which I know I am sometimes not good at practicing what I preach, but it's it's 2 things for this one. One is when I keep up with it, it's less work, right? When I am on top of tracking our finances, then each day there's not that many transactions. Even the 2 days I missed when we were out of town, when I logged in on Monday, I think there were like 12. Like it wasn't like I was trying to play catch up with tens, hundreds of transactions. And so that's kind of why it's all or nothing. I think the other reason is I like seeing the summaries. I like seeing the numbers. And when I keep on top of it, I know that like, okay, when I get to the end of the month, I get to like add all the numbers up and see that total at the end. So for that goal, for me, the momentum really does carry me through. So I did a good job on this month. I actually am carrying this over to February, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get there, which is now. Before we move into February, I want to start off with, I don't have a very busy month in February. We have one night where we have tickets to a show. Otherwise, we have no plans. I guess we'll watch the Super Bowl, but otherwise we have no other commitments in the month of February. And here in Chicago, it's probably gonna be pretty cold. So we're probably not gonna be going out and about all that much. So I knew that I was going to have extra time in February to focus on my goals. So I went a little above and beyond, and I did fill up every line in the one-time action section. I wanna remind you, you do not need to fill up every line. In fact, most of the time, I wouldn't recommend that you fill up every line. It really depends on your life and your goals, what your days look like, how much time you have to dedicate to your goals, how much energy you have to dedicate to your goals, and what those action steps are. You'll see some of these are really small, like they're not gonna take that much time. And then some of them are going to take a little bit longer. So let's talk about them. The first one is actually not really related to any of my quarterly goals. Kind of its own thing, but something I know I want to prioritize in February, and for whatever reason, I'm very accountable to this piece of paper, so I went ahead and put it on there. I definitely could make it fit into my annual goal, so the color I gave it was the make time for myself goal, and that is to finish December daily. If you've never heard me talk about it before, a December daily is a scrapbooking project where you document every day in the month of December. And I had done it for 4 years, very successfully, finished the project by the end of December every single year. And this year I did not, which that does not surprise me, but also like, I wanna make sure that I get it done. I did post a video last month where I talked more about why I didn't finish the project and what my thoughts are on it. and I was still planning to finish it, and I'm gonna prioritize that in February. I thought about making it a weekly goal and trying to spend time on it every single week, but the truth is, I don't know how often I'm gonna be working on it. I don't have the supplies out on my desk anymore, so I don't know if I'm gonna wanna do it in like 2 long sprints where I just kind of pull everything out and work on it for a couple of hours. We'll see how I end up tackling it. So that's why I put it in the one-time steps. So it is one of those one-time steps that is broken down further somewhere else, because it's not just one step that I'm gonna finish in one sitting. I am going to do the days in multiple sittings. Now, I did already get the photos printed. There is one more set of photos I still have to get printed for for a special page, but otherwise all the photos are printed. And so the steps are really just to work on every single day. I got through day 11, I think, before I stopped. So I have 14 days left to do, which is a lot. So it's almost like if I did one every other day in February, that would get me to the end of it, but that's not how I want to tackle it. And because that's not the priority. And like I said, I could have broken it down where I made a goal to do one every other day, or I made a goal to do, how many does that end up being per week? 3 to 4 every single week, but I'm not sure yet how I want to tackle it. So the action step on my goal page is just to finish it. The next 3 action steps are all related to scheduling those appointments. So in January, I just said make 1 appointment, and I wasn't specific. In February, I am getting specific about the 3 appointments that I'm going to make, and that is the dentist, a vision appointment, and a pelvic floor therapist. And there's a lot of different reasons why I prioritize those over some of the other ones on my list, because that's not the complete list. There's the one that I made with a primary care physician that I made in January that is happening in February. And then I'm gonna make these 3, and there are still a couple of more. So those will probably, as no surprise, be my March goals. But these are the 3 that I'm focused on getting scheduled in February. And the good news is 2 of the 3, I already have exactly where I'm gonna schedule, because my husband is doing kind of the legwork for me in most of these. Like the primary care physician, he saw one, really liked them. So I'm just made an appointment with the same person. Same thing with the dentist and the vision, like he already found one that's within our insurance, and I'm just following in his footsteps. Obviously, for the pelvic floor therapist, I'm gonna have to do my own research and find my own. I actually started this action step way back last year, like during my maternity leave, because I got a list of referrals from my OBGYN and at my 6-week postpartum appointment. And so right after that appointment, I picked the 3 that were the closest to our apartment, and none of them took our insurance. So I did start to tackle this from that direction, and I think I'm gonna have to reverse it and go through the insurance to find one that takes our insurance. All right, the next 2 steps are related to our travel goal for the quarter. The first one is to start working on a packing list. Really, that's a packing list for my daughter. I have a packing list that I've been working on for years, and so I feel good about that one. But I want to start working on the packing list for her. Our first trip is not until April, but I want to start the list now because like I said, I have time in February. March is not going to be quite as open, and then by the time we get to April, I'm gonna wanna start packing. So I don't want to be working on it then. So I'm gonna start the list here in February. And then the other action step is to organize all of our travel numbers. I feel like every time I go to book flights, I am on a hunt, and I probably should have done this while I was booking the flights in January. That probably would have been faster, but it is what it is. I'm always on the hunt for our TSA PreCheck numbers, our rewards numbers for all the various airlines, for myself and my husband and now my daughter. And so I want to organize all that information as well as all of the travel stuff instead of like digging through my emails when I want to look up our, record locator numbers for various trips. I want to save them all somewhere. So I haven't decided yet if I'm going to do that on my phone, or I'm sure there's an app for that. I would probably just do it in a notes app. If you have any recommendations, I probably won't have done that by the time this video goes up. If you have any recommendations, organize that. My other thoughts are a Google Doc or a Google spreadsheet so that my husband also has access to it. Not that he really ever books the flights, but those are, I will figure that out. All right, the next one-time step is related to the monthly task, quarterly goal. So that is where I'm working on the things that I want to do every month in our household. And in January, I worked on the list and some of the tasks. In February, I will continue to work on some of the tasks. But what I really want to do which was a recommendation from one of you, is instead of trying to do them all during 1 week, which obviously, like, this is just one of those things that, like, when you are not the person, sometimes you see it so much easier, so much more clearly. So the recommendation was, instead of trying to do it all in 1 week, why don't you do like these things week 1, these things week 2, so on and so forth. So that's what I want to do. I want to look at the list that I made in January, and I want to map out, okay, week 1, I'm going to do these 3 things. Week 2, I'm going to do these 3 things, so on and so forth, to balance them out over the course of the month. And then hopefully by March, I will just be able to execute on that plan and feel good about that to wrap up that quarterly goal. That reminds me, I never talked about the quarterly goals that I finished. Okay, I was gonna do that in between the months, but now we'll just do it at the end. The next 2 are related to the finance goal. So the first one is to take advantage of the registry discount that's about to expire. So if you have ever registered, I don't know if they do this for weddings too, but if you've ever registered for a baby, most of the places that you register will give you a discount on anything that wasn't purchased from your registry. And at this point, anything that we registered for was for like the first 6 months of her life, and I have purchased those at this point, but I still have like funds in the discount, like, because they have a cap on how much you can use. And so I still have funds in the discount, and it expires at some point in February. So I want to go through and make sure that I take advantage of that and buy some of the stuff that I might need for her from like 6 to 12 months. I've already started making a list. So that one is one of those that's like a couple steps. It's like, make the list of things, pick the things and purchase them. But I want to make sure that one has not only, it doesn't need to happen in February, but there's a cutoff. I think it's like the 18th or something. And then the next financial one-time step is to send the summary email to my husband. This was an action step that I started last year, where I sent him a summary at the end of the month with both of our business incomes, because we both work for ourselves and have fluctuating incomes on a monthly basis, and then all of our expenses for the month, and then what was our net at the end. And so he can just have a snapshot of what our month looked like. So because I tracked our finances well in January, I will send that email the first week of February. And then the last one-time step is related to the meal planning goal, and that is to clean up my Plan to Eat account. I talked about Plan to Eat in a favorites video, 2022, maybe? It may have even been 21, but I think it was 2022. Because I think I bought it, I know I bought it on a Black Friday discount. And so I think I probably bought it in 21 and then used it all of 2022. A lot of those recipes in there are things that I probably still want to cook, but I wanna go through it. I wanna make sure that the recipes in there are things that I do still want to cook. And then I wanna make sure that the organization of them is something that makes sense in my brain. I've been reading the book, The Lazy Genius Kitchen, and she has definitely opened my eyes a little bit to organizing your recipes a little bit differently. So I want to get in there and organize my Plan to Eat account. So those are the one-time steps. I know I filled up every single line, but some of those, like scheduling the appointments, working on the packing list, they're not super long, like the email, like those aren't super long tasks. The big ones are gonna be the December daily, the registry discount. Those are kind of the bigger ones, with a couple medium ones thrown in there. But again, I don't have any plans in February, so we'll see. I am also always of the mindset that if I don't get everything done on this list, I'm still gonna make progress on my goals, and that is a-okay with me. Moving on to the weekly items. I only have 2 in this category. The first one is swim class, and that is pretty easy. Like, we're already signed up, so it's just going to swim class. Not that I anticipate us like bailing, like we've already paid, but I wanted to put it on my goals list anyway to kind of wrap up that goal. And then the other one is to meal plan. I didn't get specific on the number of days. It's just gonna be varying based on what that week looks like. Some weeks I may only plan 1. I don't know if it'll ever only be 1, given we don't have any plans, like I have said 8 million times. But somewhere between 1 and probably my max is like 4 meals. Okay, maybe it's 3, but plan some number of meals based on our week. I am just focused, by the way, on a weekday. My husband is the weekend dinner meal planning person. That was just one of the things that we decided to split up when it comes to household responsibilities. Okay, moving on to daily steps. And I am a little nervous because I'm gonna tell you that I broke my own rule, kind of. I often tell you not to implement more than 1 brand new daily action item in a given month. The daily steps add up and they can become overwhelming, and the more that you add, you and your brain lump them together, and then they become an all or nothing set. I was gonna say pair because I have 2 this month, but if you do more than 1, you lump them together. So that is why I've always recommended not doing more than 1. This month I really wanted to do 3. I had 3 steps for my morning routine that I really wanted to add. I ultimately decided to go with 2, but First off, neither of them are brand new. They are steps that I have done before in the past. They're just new to this year, to right now. So that makes me feel a little bit better. Number two, I've been consistent with my morning routine. So my hope or my assumption is that adding them in is not adding too much more. And then the other reason I felt okay doing both of them is that one of them, if I don't do it in the morning, I can do it another point of the day and still feel good about that action step. It's not just in the morning. So they don't necessarily have to always be lumped together. Let me tell you a little bit more about what they are. Maybe that would have helped before I started going into the reasons why I included both. So the first one is to write I am statements. I did this for a very long time leading up to quitting my corporate job, and say what you will, I think that it really made a difference. I think writing down I am a successful business owner. I am, and it wasn't all business I am statements. It was things like I am healthy. It was things like I'm planning our dream wedding. I wrote that up to the wedding. Those kinds of things I wrote every single day. And I think they made a difference. It doesn't take that long. It really doesn't take that long, especially since I've been planning my days in a notebook. I thought I would just do them in the same notebook. Like, I'm pulling out the notebook anyway to plan out my day. On the back of the day before, I'm just gonna write my I am statements before I plan the day. It just has a seamless spot in my morning routine with tools that I'm already using. So I'm hoping that that one is pretty seamless. I do need to figure out what I'm gonna start writing, like what my I am statements are gonna be. And I probably will only start with maybe 5. Like, I'll start with a smaller number. At some point I was doing 10, but I probably will start with a smaller number to jump in, but I'm really excited about that one. And that one's only like a couple of minutes. The other daily action step that I'm adding is a longer commitment, but like I said, if I don't do it in my morning routine, that's okay. And that is to read nonfiction. I have not put this back into my routine since having a baby. I have been reading fiction at night or in the bath, and I have been listening to fiction and nonfiction. But I have not been reading the physical nonfiction books that I have, which quite a few of the books I want to read this year, I have the physical copy of. So I need to figure out a time to read it. And the natural space is my morning routine. And to be totally honest, there are days that I've already been doing this. So that's the other reason it doesn't feel like a brand new step, because I talked about this in one of my day in the life videos recently. My morning routine, the order kind of gets changed up depending on what time my daughter wakes up and some of her routine type things. And so there already have been some mornings where there's this natural spot in my morning that really just lends itself to reading. And so there are mornings that I do read nonfiction already, and now I just want to prioritize that and make sure that I'm doing it at least a little bit. So starting small, I'm starting with a 5-minute timer for this goal, and we'll see how it goes. And then, like I said, if it doesn't fit nicely in my morning routine sometimes, I'm gonna try to do it later in the day and prioritize it, because that's the only way I'm gonna get through these nonfiction books that I have the physical copy of. And then the last daily action item that I am carrying over is tracking finances. Even though I did a good job of it in January, I want to make sure that I am still prioritizing it. So I'm keeping it on my goal sheet for this month to continue to track it and enjoy getting that little check mark and be accountable to it. And then hopefully at that point, it will be a nice habit that I don't need to carry over month to month in order to keep doing it. All right, let's quickly talk about quarterly goals. Just because you set a quarterly goal does not mean you have to work on it the entire quarter. And this came up on one of our community coaching calls because there was a community member who said that they achieved one of their quarterly goals and should they increase it? And I said, did you achieve all of your quarterly goals? Because if not, I want you to take that time and that energy and focus it on your other quarterly goals. If we get to like March 15th and you've accomplished all of your quarterly goals, then maybe you will add something or increase something. But in the middle of January, that's awesome that you accomplish one of your quarterly goals. Don't necessarily feel like you have to add something onto that. So I want to make sure that I share that with you as well. And then talk about the fact that I feel like 2 of my quarterly goals I have already checked off. So I have 8 total, 2 for each of my annual goals. And the 2 that I feel good about are swim class. Even though there is an action step related to it on my February goals, I still feel really good about that one and feel like I could check that one off if I had to, if it was the end of the quarter. The other one is organizing the kitchen. I am done with that. As of the filming of this video, that one is done and complete, and my kitchen feels a million times better and actually makes me enjoy being in there and want to cook and do things in the kitchen. So of those 2 quarterly goals, I feel really good about them. And I'm like, I can see my quarterly goals behind you while I'm filming this video. And like even the other ones, I'm feeling good about them. I know it's only January 24th, but I'm excited to recap those in a couple of months because I feel like it's been going really well. So that is my January check-in and my February action items. I want you to let me know down in the comments. Either you can choose. I'm gonna let you choose, or both if you wanna share both. What is one win that you have from January that you're super proud of? And or what is one action step that you have for February that you are really excited about? Let us know down in the comments so that we can celebrate together and also cheer you on. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every week focused on helping you achieve your goals. Thank you so much for watching. Why is it not focusing on my face? Oh, I know what I was gonna say. I don't like to, all right, now I'm starting, like and I probably,